that we are the earth is meant for us, that was the primary thing that contributed. It could be one causal factor, but what are your thoughts?
I love that's brilliant, the analysis according to Ishvara, Jiva, and Prakriti, and where materialism has left us, and led us. That's very, very nicely stated. I totally agree with you that I think it would be wrong to point a finger at Christianity or any other religious tradition. I think we live in a world where other religious communities are partners in our pushback against materialism and this physicalism as the sum and substance of what human beings are. Every religious tradition agrees that we are answerable to something higher, to someone higher, and that we have to live in accordance with that, and that a society driven purely by materialistic ends will end up in destruction, will end up in a state of suffering. Every religious tradition is a partner in a common struggle that we have today. And so I think we do ourselves a disservice by hitting ourselves against each other when we've got some much bigger fish to deal with in the ocean. And especially on your point about damage control, I don't think it's damage control in terms of the reinterpretation of the Genesis story and so on. You see, the way theology works is that any theological resources one has, any religious tradition, is not inherently environmentally friendly or inherently environmentally destructive. It's all about how the individual practitioners of a tradition understand, explain, and apply their theology, their scriptures, their texts. Right? I can build an argument very similar to the old Christian view of domination from a Vaishnava perspective. It doesn't take too much work, right? Human beings are intelligent creatures. You get human birth, that's very, very rare after a long time, durlabha manava janma, and therefore we have the ability to control and do what we like with the world. Ultimately, the world is a miserable place. There's no use taking care of the world. And our main goal is to escape from the world, to get mukti. Therefore, do what you have to. It doesn't matter what state you leave the world in. Do what you have to and get out of this world and let it go to hell, right? One can make an argument. You use a different set of resources, different set of theological ideas, and you build an anti-environmental argument from a Vaishnava perspective. So it's not that any theology or scripture is fundamentally problematic. It's a fact of how do we properly understand the Shastra? How do we properly understand scripture for this and apply it in a siddhantically correct way for our own time and for our own issue? I'll give you one really nice example of this from a book by Professor David Haberman, who's a professor of religious studies at the University of Indiana in Bloomington.
I think he has classic translation of NOD, na? Act of Devotion.
Yes. Bhakti-Rasamrita Sindhu, he's done a translation. He's written multiple books. He's really a scholar of Braj and all the different traditions that are there in Braj. He recently wrote a wonderful book on Govardhan, on Giriraj, called Loving Stones. And before that, he wrote a book on tree worship in India called People Trees, with the word people being spelled like the English word people, but also with the pun on the word people, the type of sacred tree in India. And then before that, he wrote a book on the Yamuna River called River of Love in an Age of Pollution. And I would recommend anyone who's interested in Vaishnava eco-theology to read these books. Really, really beautifully written. And there in the Yamuna book, he says, he shows the impact that theology has on how we engage with the environment, or rather our understanding of theology, our application of it what impact it has on the environment. He says that when he went to Braj and he spoke to pilgrims and residents about the level of pollution in the Yamuna, this is now, I don't know, maybe a decade ago. So it was at a time when this was still being recognized, right? It was still entering the popular consciousness in India. And the river Yamuna was deeply, deeply polluted, largely because most of the Yamuna river water was stopped in the dams near Delhi, and so there was very little Yamuna water in Vrindavan. I mean, and that problem continues. But anyway, when he asked pilgrims and residents about the pollution in the river, what do you think of this polluted water? He got three types of responses. Okay. The first was denial. Okay, the water can not be polluted. Yamuna is eternally pure. And he even had one pilgrim dip his cup into the Yamuna and drink the water and say, see, I'm completely fine, right? And the second response, so one was to say nothing will happen, Yamuna cannot be polluted, is eternally pure. Number two was to say Yamuna herself is pure, but when we put pollution into the river, then that pollution will negatively affect us. It does not affect Yamuna Devi herself, but it affects us. And the example was given of light pollution. Just like if you're in a big city and you look up into the sky at night, you cannot see any stars, right? But the stars themselves are not affected, they're not damaged. It's that we are unable to see the stars. It is our loss, not the stars' loss. Right? So this was creating a distinction between what is pavitra and what is swachh, pure versus clean. Yamuna is pure, but we have put pollution or uncleanliness into the river that will affect us, not Yamuna Devi. That was response number two. Response number three was that for centuries, Yamuna Devi has been sustaining and giving us life like a mother, right? Yamuna Maiya, like a mother. Now, she is sick and ailing as a result of the actions of her own children. We have gone back and made our own mother sick by our behavior. And it becomes our duty to care for her, right? Imagine your mother falling sick and suffering and us being careless about it. It doesn't matter. I don't care what's happening. How can someone who is even a human being, what to speak of a devotee, relate to their mother in this way? So needless to say, environmental consciousness and engagement increased in the order in which I described. The most environmentally active were those who felt that Yamuna Maiya, their mother, they had a personal connection with her and felt that she was suffering and it was their duty as her children to take care of her. Still environmentally active, but less, was the more human-centered approach. She's fine, but I'm suffering as a result of the pollution. And the least amount of interest were those who denied the very possibility of Yamuna waters being polluted. Mm-hmm. So this is an example of different theologies leading towards different levels of engagement, right? And all three theologies are grounded in a Vaishnava conception, right? None of those people were Gnostics that he was speaking to. None of them were atheists. None of them they were all devotees. They were all Vaishnavas who were either pilgrims or visiting Braj. And yet